Hello, everyone, and welcome to 350. I know there's nothing on the syllabus today that you have read, but what I did today in the classroom was talk about paper 2. I want to give you as much advance notice as I can for you to get started when you want to. Paper 2 is 5 to 10 pages long, and it is due May 2nd, the day before Dead Day, I believe. So what I want to do is talk to you about what a rhetorical criticism is and how you do one. And I'm going to do that today very explicitly, just as I did in the classroom, so that you have the same information. And if you have any questions about this, it's never a bad idea to set up a Zoom meeting for this type of conversation, but you can email as well, obviously. So whenever we speak or whenever we put communication out there, whether it's a song that we sing or a book that we write or an essay or a newspaper article, whatever it is not just words. According to Carlin Corse Campbell, it's an act. So we refer to the rhetorical act, which implies that there is intent, and that intent is to persuade. So anytime that you encounter something called rhetoric, it's an intent to persuade you. It's an actual act, all right? So that's the way we view rhetoric when we're looking at rhetorical criticism. Rhetorical criticism means that you're looking at something from a rhetorical perspective or through a rhetorical lens, for sure, but also that you, as a critic, are making an argument and persuading your audience why your interpretation of your artifact, your rhetorical act, whatever that may be, why your interpretation is correct. So there are two potential fallacies we can fall into whenever we practice this kind of work. And one is called the intentional fallacy. The intentional fallacy is the assumption that you will know my intention. If I am the speaker and you are the audience, you will know what my intention is. And then there is the receptional fallacy. The idea that I believe you will receive my intent. Why are these fallacies? Well, the fallacy is a flaw in logic, obviously. So why are these fallacies? Because it's untrue. It's not accurate to assume that you know the speaker's intention or the author's intention, or that they can assume that you know their intention. Now, that's not really problematic, because the rhetorical criticism attempts to answer that, to solve for those fallacies, if you will. So the first question you might have is, how do we talk about an artifact, and what is that? An artifact is any rhetorical act. Okay, so it could be a book, it could be a commercial, it could be a collection of things. I was just talking today with a student who wants to look at a conspiracy theory and has to call together multiple sort of artifacts together to piece together a full artifact. So like different news stories or websites or interviews or books that contribute to understanding this conspiracy theory. So she's using all of those things to create her artifact. For most of us, our artifact is actually created for us. You know, it's a song, or it's a lyric, or it's a poem, or a book, or a movie, or part of a movie, or a character in a movie. So for the most part, it's a pretty clean way to find an artifact. But I built an artifact when I was in college because I studied the Lorena Bobbitt trial. So I had to go and call all this information together and say, here's my rhetorical act. Here's my artifact that I'm going to be studying. Now, you should start with an artifact that you have a question about, a curiosity, an interest in, maybe a song that makes you question something, or a movie that makes you feel something, or that you believe has a deeper meaning. The example I always use is I am the worst stepmom ever because I was talking to my daughter, who's now 14, about Frozen 2. And if you haven't seen it, sorry, I'm not going to ruin it, but I am going to say that I have a theory that if you've seen the movie, you'll understand that Elsa is dead in Frozen 2, at least for the second half. That's sort of my personal interpretation, right? And I could write a paper and explain why I think that's the case. And I can also go onto YouTube and record a little criticism and be one of those YouTube people who does criticisms of movies or songs or whatever. But this is an academic practice that we engage in, and it's a legitimate academic practice that helps us understand as critics, but also as an audience, some of the interpretations that might help us answer the questions, what is the intent here? And that helps us understand the communication better. So there are 5 steps to a rhetorical criticism. And so essentially what I'm going to do is outline your paper for you. There are going to be 5 parts to your paper. The first part is a question or an interest in an artifact and a justification for why it's important or relevant to study that question and that artifact. This can probably, this could take anywhere from a small paragraph all the way up to a half a page, it just depends on how much of a justification you need to provide. Why is this important for us to look at? The second step is, also in that justification, you're asking the question. If, for example, like the person who's interested in conspiracy theories, where did this conspiracy theory come from is a question you can answer with a rhetorical method. Or what is the supposed impact of this conspiracy theory? Or how believable is this conspiracy theory as an argument might be a question that you would ask. For me, a lot of times it's what is the meaning of something? What is the meaning of this song? What is this movie about? By the way, I've never figured out what Mulholland Drive was about, and I never will. I've given up. And maybe it's not important. And you've already learned about one method. And so I don't want you starting with a method. I want you starting with an artifact and a question. So that's what that first part is. The second part is to talk about the artifact itself. If you're building it, how did you build it? If it's a song, tell me all about the context of any artifact that you choose. So, for example, if it's a song, when did it chart? When was it released? What impact did it have? How many did it sell? Is there something that the author, the songwriter says about it, or one of the musicians says about it? Or is there a critic who says something about it? What was going on in America at the time, or what was it motivated, or wherever it is that your song originates, or was it in response to something? For example, the entire album by Green Day called American Idiot was in response to a president that we had at the time. So I would need to explain all of that and why they needed to make this album. So you're going to tell me the whole entire context about where your artifact exists in time and space, and relevance. Then in the third part, you're going to talk about your methodology. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to be giving you 5 methodologies to choose from. Your question about your artifact can probably be answered by one of those 5 methodologies, more than likely. If not, we could talk about a different methodology. But the one thing you don't want me to do is say, go out and find a method. That would be incredibly difficult for you. I would think. It was difficult for me when I was in college, and I hated that my professor did that to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 options, and I'm going to provide for you at least one theorist that you can use as a source for understanding that method. And you've already studied one method. That method was what's known as the Neo-Aristotelian method. It is evaluating a speech based on the 5 canons of rhetoric, of course, and obviously heavy focus on invention and the inartificial and artificial proofs. So that's going to be one of your options, and we've already taken a look at it, but I will explain it a little bit more on Blackboard for you all, for everybody. And then you also should probably, use at least one Aristotle as a source, or Cicero, or somebody from the classic Greek or Roman period, since it's the Neo-Aristotelian method. So the next step, after you tell me about your method, and you're only talking about your method. You were only talking about your artifact in the last one. You're only talking about your method. In the fourth step, you're going to actually do the application. And this is basically plug and play. Here's where, for example, let's say that I'm doing a Neo-Aristotelian criticism of a speech. Here's what ethos, logos, and pathos was, right? Here's what the arrangement was. Here's how the style was used. Here are some of the arguments that they made. You literally just plug it in. You're not evaluating it. You're not saying anything about it. You're just telling me, there's 5 canons of rhetoric. Here's how those were filled. Okay. So it's very straightforward. The last part of a rhetorical criticism is, of course, all about you and your interpretation based on the method that you used. You could think about a method like a lens. Okay, I'm going to go watch this movie with the idea in mind that I want to understand power relationships between men and women. So I'm doing a feminist perspective on this movie. So that's a lens I lay down on it, for example. Or I am going to study this essay and I'm going to use the Toulmin method. And so I'm going to take the 6 parts of an argument and plug and play. Here's the claim, here's the data, etc. Not evaluating it, just saying this is what it is. In this 5th part is where you're evaluating, okay? So you are saying, not just answering your question that you posed in the first part of the paper, but also explaining how the author did, how the speaker did, whoever it is that you're working with. Did they fulfill all the requirements? Did the interpretation come out the way that you anticipated it would? Basically just saying, we've applied it, and now here's what we've learned, okay? In a lot of books, they refer to this as contribution to rhetoric, which is a really weird way to say your analysis and conclusion. What is it that we can learn from your analysis, okay? That's sometimes the longest part of your paper. It just depends. Your paper being 5 pages long at a minimum, you have 5 parts to your paper, so it should be easy to reach that minimum. Your organization is laid out for you. Your methodology is going to be laid out for you pretty well. So this paper should be fun and interesting to write for you. So pick a topic, a subject, an artifact that you have some interest in and some question in. In class, somebody said, I'm really confused because I watch this movie and it's about vampires, but I really think that it's about something else. And I want to figure out what that is. Well, we're going to choose a method to help him figure that out. And by the way, no, it's not Twilight. Or with the conspiracy theory. The student asked me about the conspiracy theory. I want to know how this conspiracy theory came about, or whether or not the conspiracy theory is justified. I mean, there's all sorts of questions that you can ask, ways you can ask the question, but it should be interesting to you. If you don't pick something that's interesting to you, you will not enjoy writing this paper at all. You won't be motivated. The reason why I'm giving you this now is because this paper is due May 2nd. So I always promised you guys at least 2 weeks on a major assignment, but obviously this is the major assignment. So it's been on the syllabus since the beginning, but I want to start getting you to think about it. I know we haven't run through all of the methods just yet or anything like that, but we can start talking about this process, and you can start thinking about what artifact you might have a question about that is interesting, or something that you think we need to figure out. All right. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. This is what we did in class today, and I wanted to make sure that you all got the same opportunity to hear me describe for you very specifically what this second paper is supposed to do. I believe that there's a sample paper too on Blackboard, but if not, it'll be up this week. I always put a sample paper up or a couple of them just so that you could see what it's like. These papers will not necessarily be A papers, but they will be good examples of organization or using a particular method, and it will definitely help you understand what I'm looking for when I grade your papers. So I want everybody to get as many points as possible on this. It's not my real desire to just take points off. I enjoy reading these papers every semester, so I'm looking forward to it, to be honest. But I'm going to grade them over finals week, and you know, for all of you, I have about 40 students, so reading 45 to 10 page papers in a week and grading them and making sure I get your grade in on time. That's why it's due May 2nd. So 11:59 p.m. May 2nd. I believe that's a Thursday, and it should be a Thursday. That's when it should be due. All right, everybody. Next time on Thursday, I will be talking about Richard Waitley and I think Bain, possibly. So I will have another video for you on Thursday that will be completely content-based, and I will see you then.